Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff Clements, co-founder and CEO of American Promise, and this is the For Our Freedom podcast. Today, I'm talking with Representative Andrew Byron from Wyoming. He represents House District 22 out there in Wyoming, and he is seen personally, as so many have around the country, but in Wyoming, they've certainly had their share of untraceable money finding its way into the state's politics. Federal court decisions have stripped the states like Wyoming from having the power, the ability to respond, even to find out where this outside money is coming from. So that's why Representative Byron is backing a constitutional amendment to restore the state's power. And he's got a resolution grounded in a simple idea. The people of Wyoming and their elected representatives should be the ones to set the rules for how money works in Wyoming elections. So today we'll talk about what Representative Byron is seeing in Wyoming, what the amendment that he's working on would change, and why it matters to you and to all Americans, no matter where you live, your party, or your political views. Good afternoon, Representative Byron. Good to see you again.
Hi, Jeff. Thanks for having me today. Really looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, great. Now, this is going to turn out to matter, but I'm going to say it anyway. You're a lifelong Wyomingite. You've been a small business owner, a firefighter, and of course, living in Wyoming, a fly fisherman. And you were first elected to the legislature back in 2022, and now you've been a leading voice on this issue of dark money in politics. Tell us, why did you choose to take this on?
Well, Jeff, thank you, for that introduction. I was born and raised here in Wyoming, and I'm blessed to still live here and raising a family here. But um, my first election cycle in 2021, going into 22, is you're kind of just flying by the seat of your pants. You're trying to cross your T's, dot your I's, not miss meetings, run a campaign, and obviously defeat your opponent. But it kind of came up a little bit early in my short career. I've only been in this is my second term, as we got through the first session. But really, where I started seeing it was the tail end of my first session. A lot of the dark money I started observing in the form of mailers and untraceable mailers and attacks on colleagues of mine that were unfounded, were inaccurate, but most of all untraceable. They couldn't respond to them because they didn't know where they were coming from, who was authoring them, and certainly who was paying for them. So that, I guess, started my interest in this conversation, through another number of colleagues that then ran a campaign through that next cycle. And I mean, I have colleagues that sadly were defeated, and some that made it, and they had a dozen or more campaign ads, digital, mailers ran against them, and they couldn't respond. They couldn't fight back because there was no truth in him, and they didn't know where they were coming from. And that really got me on board with what we tried to do this last session. And as you remember, Jeff, we did get the previous joint resolution through the Senate, which was a huge lift. And then sadly, it did not, kind of due to lack of time and how Wyoming structured, it didn't get heard or proper hearing on the House floor. It did make it through the committee I chair, and we were pretty excited about that. That was a huge win for this momentum and this issue we're dealing with. But that's what got me interested, and then seeing colleagues that I need so badly to be by my side lose their election because of the narrative that was inaccurate, not honest, and coming from a source that is located far outside Wyoming, really kind of got me motivated to get involved in this conversation.
Yeah. Well, we at American Promise certainly appreciate your leadership, Representative. Now, I've heard recently one of those outside organizations has officially named you a rodeo clown. So, first, congratulations, I guess. And second, tell us more about that. What is
Well,
going on?
there's a lot to unpack there, Jeff.
Yeah.
For those that don't follow the sport of rodeo, it's near and dear to Wyoming's heritage and our future, and it's something we're all passionate about. The crazy thing about it is the coolest position in all of rodeo is the rodeo clown. They are the most important in terms of keeping riders safe, animals safe, staff safe, and they get all the cheers and all the accolades. So when they named me, this Honor Wyoming group named me a rodeo clown, and a number of my colleagues, I think it was actually an honor. It was it's something I would never jump in the ring with a bull and become a true rodeo clown. So I think that one backfired on him a little bit, and it's fitting because obviously that concept didn't come from someone in Wyoming that knew what they were talking about. If they wanted, they wanted to make fun of me, they would have, I don't know, called me some different position in the rodeo circuit, maybe the guy that cleans the stalls or something. But it's something that I don't even put a lot of thought into because it's such a foreign entity. Not saying foreign in terms of outside of our country, but outside of Wyoming that was trying to influence these conversations and this narrative yeah, did I see it? Does it pop on my social media? Do people text it to me all the time? Great, but it actually helps to my advantage because it starts a conversation. Starts a conversation with constituents and the folks behind this originally were pretty hard to track down. It was really secretive. There was some investigative reporting and they figured it out and now they are fully transparent, conveniently on their website. Some of the irony, Jeff, I've never talked to you about or anyone, is that one of the board members lives in my district and is someone I know and I've known for 35 years, being a native of Wyoming. And when I confronted him about it and said, "Hey, you're my constituent, these guys are giving me a hard time, and tell me more about, this group you've signed up to be involved with. You're a board member." And he immediately said, I don't really know what I signed up for. They just said it was an important thing for conservative politics and asked me to be on the board, but I don't know a thing about it. So there's some interesting tactics going on, and it's just not Wyoming. It's not the way we live. It's not how we behave in the political world. And yeah, are they out going after us right and left, putting up billboards? Sure, but you just have to find a way to take advantage of those conversations when constituents do call and call you out on stuff that these folks might have brought up and be able to tell the truth because that's what ultimately matters, Jeff, is the truth in these situations.
Yeah. So this is a group outside the state of Wyoming.
Yeah, they have some members now and some staffers that are ironically right here in my district. Some of their published, hired hands are and people they have on their staff website bios are right here in Jackson Hole and in Teton County. And I've had conversations with them and they're semi-apologetic, semi-private about it, saying we're not really intending to harm you. It's a bigger play at state politics, but you just trace what they're doing. You look at their social media following. I mean, they're a non-issue now. They've peaked. They're going to go away. And as you know, and American Promise knows, though they're going to use the same playbook as we head into the next election cycle, which we're heading to session here in early February, and I am only expecting ads and billboards and mailers to start probably February 1st, as soon as we start to really ramp up for that. And I mean, these guys have ties to the East Coast, the West Coast. It's not how we behave in Wyoming, and I think it's pretty obvious to folks that they're not welcome here.
Yeah. Someone sent me an article from the Wyoming news coverage saying that I guess the guy behind it came from California and lives in one of the Dakotas and isn't, yeah. So which reminded me of a couple of other and your story about the rodeo clown story, which is actually a compliment, reminded me of some other stories going on where these outside groups don't really know the state. Our friend David Trahan in Maine, he runs the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine, and a Second Amendment leader in Maine, and he was opposing a anti-hunting measure, and all the money was coming from outside trying to advance this anti-hunting measure in Maine, and they were using grizzly bears in their ads, which haven't been seen in Maine in probably
Ever,
a century or two. And
maybe ever, yeah.
yeah, yeah, and of course it's black bear in Maine, but no, which every Mainer knew. So sometimes they make mistakes, but it's a serious situation because they have a lot of money. They're coming from outside the state and they're impacting the state. I don't know if you saw this one, but in Georgia. We've got a situation, and again, because the federal courts have stripped the states of the ability to be in charge of their own elections with respect to spending, you now have a story about Republican Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, endorsed by President Trump, running in a primary. And suddenly, a group called Georgians for Integrity has been funding big multi-million dollar attacks on him. No disclosure of its donors. A lot of Georgians are raising questions about who's behind it, where's the operation coming from, doesn't appear it's in Georgia, things like that. And so, your story in Wyoming, sadly, is a situation going on around the country because the states are now sort of under this onslaught of outside money and attempts to change the state from outside because of the federal court decisions around money and politics. So I want to ask you, you're close to it as a representative there. When voters see this going on, what does that do to trust in elections, trust in our political system? And who's in charge if anonymous money is going to be influencing who gets elected out there in Wyoming and elsewhere?
Well, I mean, I think you can link that question you pose right back to the Georgia comment, and think about the words people are using: integrity,
Yeah.
honor, freedom comes up a lot. Well, you go to any constituents of mine's door and you knock and say those three words and say, "That's what I'm aligned with. Will you vote for me?" They're going, "Oh yeah," no matter what side of the spectrum they're on, even if they're not on, they don't identify with the R or the D or the middle. They are, yeah, those are things I like. I like you as a candidate, and so if they can twist that into their message, these outside sources and these outside influences, and use these specific words that really, tug at people's hearts and minds, they tend to get momentum. But to your point, it's coming from, I mean, I think if you surveyed every one of my constituents, which is about 9,500 voters, and said, do you want I'm going to pick on California because it's easy to do that from Wyoming. Do you want someone that's based in California, that the playbook came from California, and their funding or maybe their operations are started there, and they've moved a little bit, but that's, do you want to get behind someone that's, I don't think a single one of my constituents, no, we don't want anything to do with that political world in California. Here in Wyoming, we're going at it. We do it our own way. We do it well. And so I think that's really what we're getting down to here is, where is this coming from, and being able to tell the voter and talk to the voter about the truth, right? The truth matters. And like I said earlier, the rodeo clown comment, if it's working against them, and they can know this, and I hope they listen, because the more they allow me to engage with my voter base, the better it's going to be for me in the next election. I can go through a whole session and maybe get 10 phone calls from worried constituents about issues. Five of those are the same folks that call me once every other day anyway. Five of them are folks that just are watching on YouTube, watching our committee meetings, watching our session, tracking votes. But then you start getting conversations like, Andrew, you're a rodeo clown. Like, these people look really, I mean, Honor Wyoming must be a really legitimate organization. And then I can tell them, and they're like, I never knew, Andrew, that's unbelievable. I'm gonna opt out of their ads, or I'm gonna stop listening to them. And so it's just a matter of controlling the narrative, staying out ahead of it, and then speaking the truth. We're lucky. I can't imagine a state or a representative, a colleague of mine in another state that has tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of constituents. I have 90, I'm blessed to have 9,500 people that I first answer to before I answer to my state. And those folks can see through a lot of this stuff, but it takes time and resources to push back against this. And that's why I have been such a proponent of getting a resolution through the Wyoming legislature to fight against this, and to support my colleagues that are drafting these, and that are arguing about these on the floor, and outside of the body when we're not in session.
Yeah, and I understand the resolution aimed at advancing this constitutional amendment solution to this problem was introduced just this week, and is or moving ahead. Tell us more about it. How is it
It,
doing? Are the voters supportive? Are your colleagues supportive?
well,
How is it
it dropped.
progressing?
It dropped today, actually. So their
Just
timing
today.
is
Okay.
impeccable. Yep. We're going into a budget session. So Wyoming on even years meets basically a calendar, a 30-day month, of which we are working 20-ish days, maybe a few more, maybe a few less. And then on odd years, we work 2 months, and of those, we're working 40 days. So we are going into a budget session, it has a lot of barriers of entry. You need a 2/3 majority vote to get bills introduced in the body of origin. There's a lot of, it's a crunch time. It's a beautiful system. Wyoming man, we do it right. We have a great way we do it, in my opinion, to keep government small. But we had so much support and hadn't really worked the process and the original joint resolution this last session, which was my second general session. And I think that was an eye opener for me. Sometimes you feel like when you introduce a bill or co-sponsor a bill, you can't always take the temperature of the room, your colleagues. You got your whip count, you kind of know where people are going to line. But ironically, and I'm going to go kind of off on a tangent here. We had a similar bill joint resolution drop that precluded and prohibited foreign money in ballot resolutions. And that thing passed almost unanimously, right? So these are same concepts. Do you want a ballot initiative that's going to go to the voters, a real true form of government, representative government, where the people get to decide on a ballot in November? Do you want foreign money influencing those votes? And the answer is no. It was a resounding no from my colleagues on both the Senate and the House side. And I think that if we could have had some momentum and not ran out of time, we probably would have gotten this across the finish line last session. And like I said, this session will be tough because we are going into a very short work period. But look at our surrounding states, Jeff. We tracked it in Utah. There was a lot of success with this measure in Utah, and similar politically aligned supermajority in Utah. On the Republican side, and had a lot of great backers, great conservatives that were behind this. And I'm here to support the senator that dropped it originally, and that's continuing to push it. Senator Ed Cooper, out of a very cool rural place in Wyoming, Ten Sleep, Wyoming, and he's got a huge Senate district in terms of mileage, and he was a champion of this and worked it hard. And then on the House side, I had a couple of good colleagues that I came in with, and also that were here historically and have been here for many, many terms, that have gotten behind this because they're watching what happens. So we tweaked it a little bit, but I'm excited to keep it rolling. Statistically, really good individual bills or resolutions take 3 sessions in Wyoming to get through. So you're lucky if you get something through the first try. We call it, and I'm sure other bodies do as well. We got to get this thing ready for prime time. We got to do the hard work out of session. Talk to our constituents, and the people of Wyoming have spoken. I mean, there are statistics out there and polls out there that say, I believe it's over 70% want nothing to do with this out-of-state money, and you probably have that number more specifically, Jeff. But so it's my voters have spoken. I don't need any more factual basis there. It's just a matter of getting the message out, getting my colleagues on board, and hopefully having some time to get something like this through this next session.
Yeah, well, across the country, I know Americans are rooting for you, Representative, and Wyoming to join, the nearly 24 states that have now moved this ahead, this constitutional amendment. And I think one of the reasons you mentioned foreign money, and this might be interesting to your colleagues, in the state of Maine again, they had foreign governments spending money through 100% owned foreign government owned corporations, spent close to $100 million in the state of Maine elections. And so the legislature and the people of Maine in a ballot initiative prohibited that, said no foreign money, no foreign government money coming into our elections. The federal courts struck down the law in federal court in Maine, and then the federal courts in Boston. And so that's the problem we're dealing with. Even foreign government money now, the states are being told, no, you can't do that. And so I do think it's nearing unanimous support, because it's just crazy to most Americans and legislators that this power has been stripped from you guys who are the lawmakers in the states, to protect your own states and decide for your own destinies there. So we're super grateful to all of you, and I know watching what happens next in Wyoming. Let me close though with this, Representative, and it's the beginning of 2026, America's 250th birthday coming up on July 4th. And I think it's a good moment to ask, can we keep faith with this promise of freedom and self-government? And what gives you hope?
Well, yeah, Jeff. I mean, what a special year we're heading into because of that, and a number of other reasons. We're blessed to be Americans. But I do to kind of hit on your last comment. We want to prohibit foreign money. Wyoming is running bills to prohibit foreign ownership of private land. Wyoming's banning foreign governments and entities to owning, private land, ranches, agriculture. So why does it stop there? Where's the differentiation there between, someone that could come control our supply chain with agricultural products, but yet they can't do that, but they can drop 100 million on an election, and a state race. My race is you can win a Wyoming state, or historically could win a House race for not a ton of money, and that's changed because the opposition is unlimited, is funded with unlimited amounts of money. But what gives me hope is that good things continue to get done. Like I said, Wyoming, I've gotten to study through conferences and talking to colleagues all across the West. I've gotten to study how other legislative bodies work, primarily in the 12 or 13 Western states. And I always pinch myself because I'm so excited how Wyoming has set it up, how efficient we are. It is frustrating. It takes time, but the system is designed to do that. It's designed to get good legislation into our green books, our law books, and what gives me hope is that we can have these conversations, as frustrating as it is, and get people on board, and get people educated about how do you want this to look. We talk so much about election integrity anymore. This is at the root of it. Funding and money behind people that want to cause harm and change the direction of a state is fundamentally against what I would call election integrity. So that's what gives me hope, is that we have momentum. We, as you said, nearly 24 states, and a lot of great momentum in super conservative states, a lot of great momentum in super liberal states, and that's how this should be working, right? Anytime I have a bill. And Wyoming is a super duper majority, right? Very few Democrats, but anytime I'm working on a bill, I really want to have support from both parties, because my constituent base has both parties in it, and independents. So we have to think that way, and that's what gives me hope, is when you can get a number of great seasoned legislators, newer legislators, freshman legislators on this joint resolution in Wyoming, and work it hard, and just be able to spread the message. That's what gives me hope, and also that efficiencies are great. Wyoming is lucky to have an efficient form of government, and I know I'm always wishing other states could learn from us. Although not having staff, as you know, and I often tell constituents, don't call my staff, call my cell phone, because I'm a staff of zero, and it's just me. So I think that's what gives me hope, is that we still have a form of representative democracy in Wyoming, that we can have these conversations. My constituents can reach out and get me directly, and we can have conversations that really progress and help the future of our state, and certainly my district. So I'm lucky to have that.
Representative Andrew Byron, thank you so much for joining us on the For Our Freedom podcast today.
Jeff, thanks so much for having me. I look forward to catching up soon, and hopefully seeing you soon.
Yeah, me too, Representative. Thank you.